Hi there, this is Phil Simborg. Just returned from a very fun Labor Day weekend in Charlotte at a great tournament, very well run by Jeb Horton and his family. And congratulations to Don Fay, who won the championship division, and Samra Haddon, good friend of mine from Atlanta, who won the advanced division. And I'm happy to say that I tied for second with three other people, with Vadim Musalayan, Tuvia Felt, a fine young player, just entering the scene and making quite a splash for himself, and Mary Hickey, who we all know is a very fine player. A lot of tremendously interesting matches and positions. It would take me years to actually analyze and look at all of them. But here's one from one of my matches that I found particularly interesting. I wasn't quite sure what was going on here, but I was red, and I'm sorry, I was blue in this position in a 9 point match, and I was holding a two cube and on roll. And I wasn't quite sure if I should redouble, and I also wasn't quite sure whether red should take or pass. So you can pause this tape and think for yourself what you would do, and then come back and hear what happened, what's right, and some other interesting things about this position. Okay, I'm a very, very strong proponent of Woolsey's Law. In fact, I insist that all of my students and myself use it every single time I'm thinking about cubing. Woolsey's Law, ask yourself, if you were an opponent, would you take or pass? If you know you would pass, then double, unless you're too good to double, and can't be too good to double when he's got checkers off. If you're not quite sure if he has a take or a pass, that's a very good reason to double, because if you're not quite sure, maybe he's not sure and he'll make a mistake. Or if you're not quite sure, maybe it's because it's right on the fence. And if it's right on the fence of a take or a pass, that's a great time to double. It's a tough decision for your opponent, and it probably means that if you don't double now and you wait, you'll probably lose your market. You'll probably not be able to have anything close to a take very soon if it really is on the fence. Well, here I wasn't sure if I was red if I would like to take this cube or not. I still wasn't sure 100% if I should double. It felt like I should, and then I went to another thing that I call Simborg's Law. I'm very proud of the fact that I put a name on it, but I was far from the first to come up with this idea. The idea was, if you're not quite sure what to do, put yourself in your opponent's shoes and ask yourself, if you were them, how you would feel about it. So I stole this basic concept from our friend Kit Woolsey and said, how would it feel to be red getting this cube? If the answer is, well, I'm pretty sure I know what to do and it's no big deal, then that would tell me pretty much what to do. But if the answer is, boy, I really, really hope that Phil doesn't cube this now, because I'd hate to have to take this, or I'd hate to have to drop this, I'd hate to even have to make a decision. And that's how I felt about this cube. So the combination of Woolsey's Law, Simborg's Law, that's not a lot of math involved, is it? I didn't do any complicated mathematics here, or lots of positional study to come to the conclusion that red would not like to be doubled here, and maybe it's not a take. So I doubled, and my opponent passed. And the answer is, it's a take. Not a monster mistake either way, but it's still a pretty solid double and a pretty solid take. Now, I started thinking, well, what would make this a pass? And it occurred to me that if he couldn't come in as high as the 4 point, and he could only come in at 3 point, maybe this would be a pass. Does this turn it from a take to a pass? What do you think? The fact that when he comes in on the 3, it's going to be harder to get out. This was a sure take with the 4 point open. So doesn't it logically follow that you think this might be a pass? Take a look at the surprising answer. The surprising answer is, it's barely even a double. This got worse for blue. And I started thinking, why is this worse for blue? And I really realized that you really do have to look more at the features of the position. This is worse for blue because blue only has this one checker within 6 of this point. And the odds of his being able to hit the 3, if a red comes in with just a 3 and stays there, and the odds of making this point go way, way down. In fact, I don't think there's a way to make this point without shifting from points already made. So this is actually a better position for red, which surprised me when I first saw it. And I could see that the reason had to be these builders. Now take these builders and put it here, and you'll see if my hypothesis is correct. And this is the way you test positions. This is a worse position if he has the same number of builders for this point as for this point. And of course, I also help the pip count for blue, which is another reason why. But the pip count isn't the major thing here. With red up 34 pips, it's the fact that he's coming in on the 3, which is harder to escape from than there. But that's an interesting way to learn about the features of the position. And once you start playing with these positions and goofing around with them and moving them around, you'll see how the features improve or get better or worse. Let's go back to the original position. Let's take a look at the numbers again. It's a good solid double and a good solid take. What if he could come in on the 5 point? If he could come on the 5 point, you still have the same number of builders for this point, but if he comes on the 5 point, he can now escape with a 5-6, and of course he can hit with a 5-4, he can come out with a 5-3, and blue would have to hit and doesn't always hit. This looks like a lot better position for red, and you'll see that it is. It's not a double. It's a monster take, but only a very, very tiny no double. It's very close to a double. Gosh, I really think this would have to turn into a double if we got another builder. Now that's a lot more risky, but remember, blue is on roll, but he has more points to make it and hit now. This should turn it into a double. Wow, big double. Of course, if we took even another checker and put it in the zone and had even more builders and we improved the pip count, again, I don't think the pip count is that critical, but the pip count's always a factor. This should be such a monster double it probably could even be close to a pass, and I'm wrong. It's easily a take still. I would have thought this might have turned it into a pass. Again, we're learning it's not that much about the pip count, whether you're up 24 pips or 35 pips. It's about, can red get in and escape? Can blue make this point? Can he keep him from escaping? That's really what this position is about. Once blue closes this board, when red has 2 checkers off, he is dead. As a matter of fact, even if blue can slot the point, which he would do in many cases, if red doesn't hit the slot, this has got to be a big pass. Monster pass. So that's another thing I learned from the position. Now let's talk about another thing. How would you play the position? Let's go back to this position and let's put something like this configuration. And let's say we rolled something that didn't make the point, like go 6-1. How would you play the 6-1? Let's assume that you didn't double, or whether you did or not, and you have a 6-1 to play. Would you slot that point? Would you stick a checker down in there? Would you block and make this point and have 2 blocking places and make it hard to get hit? Would you bring this checker out to have another builder in the outfield in case he comes out? You don't slot. Why? You've got enough points to make it naturally. You actually block and make sure you don't get hit. Now he could only escape with a 4-5, and even there you get shots. And if he rolls a 4-3, you get lots of shots. If he rolls a 4-6 or a 4-4, he's stopped. 4-1 and 4-2 are stopped. So you've got enough ways to stop it to where you don't have to slot the point. How about if the 5 point was open? Would you slot the 5 point, let's say, with a 5-1? No. The same thing. Slotting the 5 point is way down on the list. A lot of times you do slot in these positions. Would you slot if he had more checkers off? Does that matter? No. You still have plenty of... Oh my goodness. Look how close this is. 0.001. Now, you notice that I'm not answering the questions before I hit the button? Well, look at this. You do slot. According to plus plus, it's really right to slot. And plus plus is a far better indicator. You notice I wasn't answering before? I wasn't 100% sure. What does this mean? This means I need to study this better, just like the rest of you. I'm not an expert at this. I need to become an expert. How do you become an expert? By doing this over and over again with different configurations and different numbers of checkers off. Again, when he had 2 checkers off, you wouldn't slot. When he has, at what point do you slot or not slot? Now he's got, let's give him 3 checkers off. Probably you don't slot by a little bit. Let's see. And again, slotting by quite a bit, you don't slot. By quite a bit. Take 1 more checker off. At what point does it become a slot? I really don't know. This is how you find out. Now we're getting very, very close. With 4 checkers off, and we know with 5 checkers off, it's big time to slot. So You really need to play with these a lot and get a feel for it. You won't remember every position. You won't remember the difference of the 4-point and the 5-point every time with the number of checkers off. And by the way, the ace point open or not being open is a huge thing. So all of these variables are going to come into it. The best you can do, unless you have an incredible memory, where you can remember every one of these positions, is play with it until you sort of get a pretty good feel for when you slot, when you don't slot, when you double, when you drop, when you take. It takes work to get these ingrained in your head, but they become a lot of reference positions because all of these are very, very closely related. If you remember this, you can pretty well remember this. If you can remember this, you can pretty well remember this. And you can figure these things out and become pretty close over the board. And that's about all you can ask for. Getting pretty close is actually what the best players in the world are happy to do. If they can come pretty close, you could be the best player in the world. They're not going to be right all the time and on the money all the time. They are often right all the time and on the money when it's almost exactly a reference position or something that they can do mathematically. These are not that kind of positions. These are positions where they need to understand the features of the position and the total amount of threats and the ability to cover, the need to slot. Usually you don't slot the lower points and you're much more quick to slot the higher points. And again, depends on how many checkers are off and if there's any checkers off. Hope this was helpful and interesting to you. I'll have a lot more positions coming up. There's a couple of lectures that were done. I did in Charlotte with the help of a lot of participants and a lot of giants who were there. And they will be posted on YouTube and featured in the future USBGF articles. This is a video available to anybody on comes to the Facebook site. I have close to 200 of these kinds of videos that are exclusive to USBGF members that have been saved and are available through the USBGF website. So please join. You'll see another 199 of these, or maybe more, and many of them with guest lecturers, and there are many, many other benefits of joining the USBGF. Love to have you aboard. Get connected to the live backgammon community around the world. You don't have to be an American to get the benefits and the pleasure out of being a member of the USBGF and to support the organization that's really helping to grow the game. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.